this shit bigger than me, man. Like, yeah, I'm good and all that, but you know what I mean? I ain't shit without y'all. So no matter what you up against, go hard. Don't let it. Can you imagine how I really having nothing is? Stomach growling, you ain't got no food in the fridge. Surviving on a jail diet of water and bread. No father figure, it's cause my father dead. Mom's bringing different niggas in and out the crib. No money, so you seen it's less than all your friends. But it a joke because your mother was a crackhead. Older sister hoeing off, giving all her homies head.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Now we're talking with Mervin A. Bourne Jr.
and Lolita E. Walker,
where you get it from a man's
and a woman's perspective.
I can't hear anything at all.
We're live.
Hey, and welcome to Now We're Talking with Mervin A. Bourne and Lolita E. Walker. Happy Thursday.
Welcome everybody. It's Thursday. The week is almost over.
The week is almost over. It is Friday Eve. And so we are so excited to be here. If you caught us last week, then we were talking a criminal justice system with attorney Dwight Pettit. And it was such a great conversation.
It was an amazing conversation. We looped in the new Ava DuVernay documentary, actually drama series that's on Netflix, When They See Us.
Yes.
And we talked about the criminal justice system, the ins and outs of it, what you should and shouldn't do in encounters with law enforcement. We walked through how investigations work, how trials work in terms of the in and outs to some degree, and how you navigate your way through all of these issues, especially when you have children. So it was a very intense, informative, eye-opening discussion with a legend in the field, Mr. Pettit, Dwight Pettit, and it was amazing. So those of you that joined us, you know it was a great show. If you missed it, it's okay because you can actually catch the replays on Now We're Talking radio show on Facebook as well as on BeExposedRadio.com on YouTube. Or also on Facebook on the Be Exposed Radio.
We're everywhere. We're
Facebook
everywhere.
page.
We're everywhere.
So yeah, it was, and actually a lot of people did tune in and watch the show the day after and the day after that.
Yeah.
So
we got a lot of great feedback from that show. So I think one of the things that struck me last week is we specifically asked, especially nowadays, the way that the climate of our society, when particularly black males are pulled over, what exactly should they do? And he was crystal clear and said, comply. In that moment, you be in that moment, and that's what he encouraged us to talk to our sons and our daughters about. Is complying in the moment. Make sure you don't have any sudden movements. Put your hands on the steering wheel, and after that point, make sure you can ask, what was the gentleman's name? What was the officer's name who pulled me over? In case you want to do any further investigations or make any complaints. So I thought that was great. Yeah. Wins for the week, Mervin. How you winning this week?
This week, so my daughter had her very first track meet this week. And I've been working with her on throwing the javelin, and she qualified for to move on basically to the next level in the Junior Olympics. So
congratulations, Chloe.
So that was a win. Big
win. That is a big win.
As her
her
bootleg coach.
As a coach, I was going to say, as her at-home coach.
Yeah, her at-home coach. So that was a pretty big win for me. I ran track when I was in junior high and high school, and it's something I've been wanting her to give it a shot, and this is the first she's finally given it a shot. So and in a lot of ways she's doing it because she knows I want her to give it a shot. So I'm flattered.
Daddy's little girl.
Yeah, I'm flattered that she's indulging me, but actually
she's good,
doing pretty good. So
I love it. Wow, that's good. My win for this week, Well, last weekend I shuttled Walker off to Boston for the summer, and that is a mommy win. I must say this week has been a little tougher than I thought.
I was about to say, you probably go in and out, up and down.
Yeah, it usually only takes a week. It usually only takes a week, and I'm good to go. I'm high flying. But this week was a little tough with him not being here. But I've got the rest of my summer planned out, so I think we're going to make some magic happen. I'm excited about that, and some things that we have coming up. We're working on something. We can't announce it today, but we'll hopefully by next week. Mervin and I are working on something special, and I'm hoping that you guys can come out to it. Yeah, but that's good. You still working on your end of year retreat?
Still working on it. Yes, I am, and intending to make a very big announcement soon.
I love it.
On one of the upcoming shows, maybe even by the next show.
Well, all right, I like it. And then, so we have two things to announce then for the next show. And then for me, my retreat, September 19th through the 22nd, is up, posted on lolitawalker.com. It's limited spacing for you women out there who definitely need a pause. 8 to 12 women, so please check it out. It's an all-inclusive 4-day power weekend that we'd love to have you to be a part of. So check it out, lolitawalker.com.
Awesome.
Today's show is just going to be a power play, right?
Yes, it is. It is. I'm really excited about it. There are a lot of questions I have, just even in preparing for today's show. I learned some things that I didn't know about the legal profession, even though I'm very familiar with the legal profession. And so those of you who've seen some of my posts, I threw a couple questions out there. And one of the things that I guess if I really think about it, I kind of knew it, but it's not what I deal with, every day. So it really was like I had to take a step back. And I learned in preparing for today's show that a very large percentage of people that are involved in civil litigation, civil cases, do not have lawyers. They go to court without lawyers, and they just deal with it on their own, and not necessarily because they want to. It's probably has a lot to do with access to resources, financial
lack of information,
resources, lack of information. So if you think of, a lot of people might not realize like what civil is, but basically if it's not criminal, it's more than likely civil. So that covers, all your real estate issues, landlord-tenant issues, foreclosures, all your family law situations where you're dealing with child support, visitation, custody, divorces,
everything else.
Yeah,
everything else.
And so what do you do if you cannot afford a big high-powered attorney and you find yourself in a situation where you have court?
Yeah. Or you just are stuck. Exactly that. You just, what do I do now? So the key is that we have two folks that are here today, two power women in the house. So I'll be the only non-attorney. So that'll be interesting, the conversation. But we have retired attorney Elva Tillman, who is with us. And she is really going to be talking about a Baltimore hidden gem that I didn't even know existed in Baltimore, which is the Baltimore Legal Museum.
Yeah.
Had you heard about it?
I have not. Until
it's so close to where we are.
I know.
So I'm so excited for her to talk to us about that museum, what's inside of it, how do we get access to it. They have special events, they have author readings. It's just, once she started talking to me about it, I just was in awe of all of the hidden gems that we have here in Baltimore. So Ms. Tillman is going to talk to us about that. And then we have Ellyn Riedl, who's here as well, and she's a staff attorney for some pro bono work, the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service.
Okay.
Who knew that existed, right? So as you were saying, all of these civil cases that come up and you find yourself, what am I going to do? Now you have a resource to go to ask questions, and she's going to tell us all about it. So she works with foreclosures, I believe, and we're going to ask her some questions and let her tell us all about what's here in Baltimore.
I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. I really am too. Now, one of the things we do know is that they're not able to give you specific legal advice, but what they can talk to us about is what they do, what resources are available, and then you can make the time to go around town or go to their offices and kind of ask the right questions.
Yeah. And,
all right.
And I think it's really interesting because one of the things we talked about on the last show, it really boils down to having information, right?
Yep.
And a lot of times we find ourselves in certain situations, and even if you look at the Central Park Five, each and every one of those cases, the boys and their families, it really boiled down to lack of information in terms of how they got into that situation and how they were unable to get out of it until many, many years later. So even looking at the things that we're going to be talking about today, having the information can save you so much time, so much money, so much heartache. So, you might think, well, when am I ever going to be in court? You really never know.
Knowledge is key. Knowledge is power. And the more we know, the more we grow. You don't know what you don't know. That's a real saying. You don't know what you don't know until it comes. I remember purchasing my first house when I was living in Boston. And I remember somebody said, do you have a homestead? What is a homestead? And just going through that process and learning. So I know we have lots to talk about. And when we're back, we're going to have our guests right on. Right? All right, when we're back, now we're talking with Mervin and Lolita.
Whoa. The moment my son saw a redwood tree.
It's huge!
Is the moment I knew that for him,
You can't even see the top of that thing!
even the sky has no limit.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go. Your moment is out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council. Exposed Radio.
Well, if you made them, take care of them.
Yeah, that's
Period.
real.
You're right.
That's the real deal.
It's period.
Right.
And all that old money shouldn't go toward this, money should go to, if the child is with one of the parents 24/7, 7 days a week, you don't even come get your child every day. You come get your child once a month maybe, or once every 3 months.
Right.
You cannot dictate where that money goes, especially if the child ain't calling you about nothing. Now, if the child calling you every week, then you can question about where the child support is going. But if every time you pick up the child, they look nice, they ain't complaining about nothing, why are you worrying about where the money go at?
It is what it is. Radio.
Long live Pop. Y'all can go ahead and cry now. I'm gonna show these niggas what to do with one of your beats, man. I am Gas, by the way. Strong woman story should have been on CNN. Nobody knows what it's like being Gwen. Windows closed in the house, it ain't no CNN. Can't gain weight for years, she been being thin. Single mother, no help from the system. When they was giving out food stamps, she missed them. Birth certificate, baby daddy, she couldn't list them. But her son was so beautiful when she kissed him. Blame it on love, but nigga she could've died with. Destroyed the whole world and found out she was a side chick. The nigga loved his wife and it got hard to hide it. So when Gwen confronted him, he ain't even denied it. Her fault, depends on who you asking. She tried to be a stripper, but the tip out was taxing. Buying all the purses.
My name is Ruth Rusey. I'm a retired teacher. I'm 91 years old, and this is how I live United. I say retired, but not really. Once a week, I read books to children as part of United Way's education program. Reading to a child creates links between language and literacy. It creates a bond between grown-up and child. And believe it or not, it prepares them for a better academic future. Oh, we read about frogs and flies and pigs with wings, all sorts of juicy stuff. It's a joy to watch all those little faces. I figure I have the time and they have the need. And I've always believed that if we're not here to help each other, then what are we here for really? My name is Ruth Rusey. I help kids prepare to succeed in school. So I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Go to liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
My name is Meera Batra. I have been in this country 32 years, and this is how I live united. America has always been the land of promise, and in my community, many families have come for a better life. Coming from another culture myself, I know the desire to become part of a community, to feel at home and to gain the tools for our children and families to succeed. So I advocate for these families with United Way. United Way empowers them to look beyond their histories and to see what opportunities are available. We help them get involved with their kids' schools, network within the community, and when we do, we unite them. We make the community stronger. What I do is something I wish someone had done for me, and I am so grateful I am able to. My name is Meera Batra. I help families see opportunities and succeed. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer, Live United. Go to liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Keyboard Cat, Hamilton the Pug, and Toast Meets World. These are some of the internet's most beloved pets. With millions of YouTube views, shares, Instagram likes, followers, and fans across the globe. But what do all these amazing pets have in common? Their stories started in a shelter. Start your story. Adopt a dog or cat today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a shelter or adoptable pets near you. Training that pet to play the keyboard? Well, that's entirely up to you. Visit theshelterpetproject.org and hear more about Hamilton the Pug, Toast, and Keyboard Cat's amazing adoption stories. Start a story. Adopt a shelter or rescue pet today. Your perfect pet is just a click away at theshelterpetproject.org.
7 p.m. to 9 p.m. every Saturday 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Real artists, real talk, real live on BeExposedRadio.com. I was meeting with a friend yesterday, and I've gotten to the point where don't ask me a question because the truth is going to come out. And
exactly.
Just don't
if you ain't looking for the truth, don't come to me.
Don't do it because I can't hold my tongue. And she wants to be this stylist, boutique, but you're not doing anything in that nature, and I can't take you seriously if you're not doing those things. And I understood why people didn't take me seriously because I found myself in somebody else's lane. I was good at what I was doing and what I wanted to be, but I wasn't doing it for me. So how can I ask you to take me seriously if I'm living in somebody else's shoes?
And nobody can do what you do, and I think that that's a big problem that people face now. Like, you see what somebody else is doing and you want to do that when that's not your lane.
That's not your lane.
That's not what you're supposed to be doing.
But it's popular, it's getting that person money, it's getting that person applause. Oh, I want applause. I want money. Let me stand over here behind them.
And then a lot of times people aren't honest with themselves either. Like, I was thinking earlier today, I've been woke for almost 2 days, so so you get honesty, and I was thinking, like, you know,
the Artist Exchange Radio Show.
Whatever happened to the times when we cared for one another? We shared the same respect. What is happening? We're trading what's important for shiny things. I can't allow this blasphemy. It's blasphemy. Why would you treat yourself like that? We didn't come this far just to fall right back. Don't lose yourself, stay on track. Baby, you're a god. You're a god. Baby, you're a god. Believe that. Full of the things that we've overcome.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back to Now We're Talking with Mervin and Lolita.
Hello, happy Thursday.
Thank you for joining us for yet another week. We have a great show planned for you today.
Yes, and guess who we have with us today? We have Miss Elva Tillman.
Hello.
Who is a retired attorney, and I'm so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. We actually only met not too long ago.
Yes, in May.
Yes, and it was just so amazing. We had a brief interaction. We connected right after, and as I was just hearing more about you, I said, you would be perfect to be on the show. So thank you for being here.
Well, I'm excited about being here.
Yes. And then we also have Ellyn Riedl. Am I saying Riedl correct?
Riedl.
Riedl.
Yeah.
It was Riedl, Riedl, I didn't know. So thank you. Do you get it all?
All the time. It's fine. It's all fine.
Yes. So one of the things we start our show with every week is what our small wins are. So we've told our audience what our wins are for the week, and we'd love to turn it on you guys. What are your wins for the week? Anybody can start.
Well, getting up every day at this point is a win for me. But I think being on this show is a real win, and the opportunity to actually promote the Legal Museum. A lot of people don't know about the museum, and we're excited that you would take the time to focus on it.
Yes. I heard Legal Museum. I was like, what? Where is it? It's like right near the station. So I can't wait for you to talk to us. It's one of our hidden gems in Baltimore. And, you know, every city has them. But when you find out about the nuggets and you've spent so much time in that city, it's just a wealth of information. So super excited.
Great.
So I have two. One's personal, one's professional. Okay. So my professional win for the week, we had at our Consumer Protection Project clinic that we do every week that Elva volunteers for. We helped a client who was being sued, and we were able to get the creditor to reduce the amount that they agreed to take a reduced amount, and I walked it over to their office with her, and they filed the dismissal right then, and so she is done with it. She never has to worry about it again, and it's really rare that we're able to resolve things that quickly, so it was really great to be able to just walk through that process with her.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, it was great. And my personal win, I'm finally planning my honeymoon.
Congratulations!
Got married in May, and so we're finally getting around to planning a trip to actually celebrate. So
where are you going? Do you know?
We're going. Yeah, we're going to Italy. Yeah, I've never been before, so I can't wait.
I'll give you some places that are super cool.
Oh, that's
great.
Yeah.
That's so. Oh yay! Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, I can tell you're really excited. That smile going across your face is like from ear to ear.
I am going to eat my way through. That's
How long are you going for?
2 weeks. It's the first time I've taken a full 2-week vacation in a really long time.
Doesn't it feel good?
It already feels good, and I'm not even on the trip yet.
Just the anticipation, right?
Yeah.
Wait until you get there. And leave all your guilt here. It's nothing to feel guilty about. You are excited. You're leaving. You've done it all already. And you're married. You're celebrating.
Yes.
Is your fiance excited?
Yes.
No, she's married already. They actually got married last month.
May.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You'll be doing it all over again.
Yeah.
Well, we want to give you a chance to introduce yourselves now that we know you're getting married already, and now that we know you're going to be sharing the Legal Museum with us. Tell us a little bit about yourselves for our audience who are just getting to know you.
So I am, I think you guys might have mentioned already, I'm a staff attorney with Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service. I've been there for about 4.5 years, almost 5, and I love it. It's incredibly fulfilling work, and I haven't been practicing for too long. I was admitted to the bar in 2012, so most of my career so far has been with MVLS. And it's really, it's one of the best jobs I've ever had. So it's good work, and I work with good people. Yeah.
And you specialize in foreclosures?
Yeah, so I work in our foreclosure prevention and consumer protection projects. So that is anything from mortgage foreclosure and tax sale to debt collection, bankruptcy issues, landlord-tenant stuff. It's a pretty wide range. Anything involving a consumer transaction is really kind of what our projects deal with.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And what made you want to go into, versus a firm, to go into volunteer work?
So I actually worked for a private firm for a year So when I got out of law school, I clerked for a judge in the circuit court here in Baltimore City for a year, and then I tried to find work in public interest, and there wasn't really a whole lot open. So I went to work for a private firm doing estates and trusts work, and the environment just wasn't for me. And so as soon as I had the opportunity to apply for a job doing public interest, I jumped at it.
That's awesome.
Take a break.
Oh, and look at that. We got to take a break already. So when we come back, we'll get with Ms. Tillman.
Okay.
Be right back. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
What a timer.
Now we're talking.
Are you thinking about getting your GED diploma? Well, here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a number of pep talks that can motivate you.
Sometimes things don't always turn out the way you want them to.
You know that feeling? People look at you and don't believe in you.
You want some gentle encouragement.
Then you're on your way to your GED diploma and a better life.
But I know you're probably just a little bit nervous.
You can find it in yourself to take that first step.
You can improve your future. You can do this. I know you can.
You need to start pushing yourself.
Now get your game face on and take the first step towards a better life. Hurry up. Don't make me repeat myself.
Whatever level of motivation you need to get your GED diploma, we've got a pep talk that's right for you. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org for your pep talk and find free GED classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
First they love you, then desert you. Leave with a plate full with no spoon. Ain't no space, I can't escape negativity. I got used to the taste. I've been bad, burned, then fucked over. But remain strong through the past over. Kicking haters out of the way like masked over. Roll up, sip something, let it pass over. Who would I be? It ain't the man to me that let the next man take advantage of me. When that storm come, no pan I see. Get with it, not without it, then you'll see. I beat the haters, they know I'm greater. That's why they buzzing for the elevator. But I can't save you, the weed too loud on the pedal stool. Don't carry fakers, always got your hand out demanding favors. When I just looked out, now you need more paper. I can't breathe, give me 3 feet. I never let y'all be the death of me. When my patience run there, yeah, nigga, OT, cause they wanna see me.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back to Now We're Talking with Mervin and Lolita.
Hello.
We've been already having a pretty cool discussion with our special guest tonight, Miss Elva Tillman and Miss Ellyn Riedl. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
First time. I love it.
So we're going to be talking tonight about a couple different things. One, about the Maryland Legal Museum, or
it's the Baltimore
Legal Museum,
yeah.
As well as MVLS, the Maryland Volunteer Legal Service, right?
Lawyer service.
Volunteer Lawyer Service.
Yep.
Awesome. So, I mean, let's get right into it. And,
well, we're going to do introductions because I know
we're
so excited.
Just joining us, we're going to reintroduce our guests. So, why don't you tell our audience who you are?
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Elva Tillman, and I'm actually, I guess you would call a retired urban planner and lawyer at this point in my life. And I say that because I started out to be an urban planner, and I worked for Baltimore City I actually started out with the Baltimore City Law Department, and I worked for a long time there. And then I went to Howard County. I worked in Howard County. I worked at Morgan State. I coordinated the City and Regional Planning Program. I'm a Morgan graduate. Yay! And I actually have a master's in City and Regional Planning from Virginia Polytechnic and State University, and I went to the University of Maryland Law School. I am excited about everything that I've done. I've done a wide variety of things, and I get up every day and I'm like so happy to be me and to do the things that I do. I worked for a long time as an urban planner, then I passed the bar and had some opportunities to practice law. I did practice with several large law firms, and I also went to work for the Baltimore City Law Department. I was a principal counsel for Baltimore City Law Department, and we did in fact handle condemnations for the city. We did condemnations all over the city, and essentially what we did was to acquire property for the redevelopment of the city. A lot of what you see going on now in Baltimore is as a result of the condemnations that we do or did at that point in time. When people say nothing's going on in Baltimore, I beg to differ with them. If you ride around the city, you will see a wide variety of development going on here. I think this is a wonderful city. I am probably one of Baltimore's biggest cheerleaders, and I'd like to see the city do very well.
So you mentioned urban planning. What is urban planning?
Urban planning is in fact a field that has a conglomeration of other professionals coming together to try to form and redevelop the city. It is like one of the newest professions. If you go back in time, urban planning actually evolved in the 30s out of Chicago. And a lot of minority people don't know about urban planning, so that's why I always feel it's a very important field for minority people to come into urban planning, because of the fact that minority people are the people who are disproportionately impacted by urban planning decisions. It is the coordination of physical development, the coordination of social activity, transportation systems, just every system that you can imagine has the impetus for urban planning. I think it was like the most exciting thing you could do. At a certain point in my career, about 30 years ago, I decided that I wanted to enhance what I did as an urban planner, so I went to law school. And as a lawyer, I've been able to, I think, make an impact in terms of redevelopment activities. Of course, I retired in 2016, and I had done some work with Maryland volunteer lawyers in terms of domestic relations. I had done divorces, name changes, guardianship cases, and I was very excited to work with them. I had met Ellyn actually when she was a clerk with Judge Peters, and also interacted with the people that she works with, Susan Francis, and they had said that I could actually continue to volunteer as a retired person. And so I have continued to do that with not only Maryland volunteer lawyers, but the Pro Bono Center of Baltimore, the Pro Bono Center of Maryland, and also Senior Legal Services. There are a wide variety of resources out there that people can make available to themselves.
So that's one of the things we want to definitely talk to our listeners about is last week when we were talking about lawyers and we were talking about making sure you are represented at the table, especially when you're in court. A lot of folks don't recognize that there are pro bono services that's available. So this is us telling everybody out there, especially in Baltimore, that you have so many resources that are available to you. And two of the ones you mentioned, I think you said Pro Bono.
Pro Bono Center of Maryland.
Yes.
They have a website, and Ellyn can also give you some additional information about that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. There are a lot of organizations in Maryland and in Baltimore. So I can run through some of them. I know that I'm going to forget some, but so the Pro Bono Resource Center of Maryland is actually the pro bono arm of the State Bar Association. So they recruit and train volunteer attorneys to do pro bono. They provide resources for volunteers, including a litigation fund. So if a volunteer has to pay, filing fees or something like that, has to be paid for a pro bono client, they can get reimbursed through that fund. So they do a lot of things to support pro bono in Maryland. And they also sponsor clinics. We work with them on that kind of stuff all the time. Senior Legal Services is a part of the City Bar Association, Baltimore City Bar. And they do a lot of work with older adults in the city. So they do estate work. We work with them on foreclosure issues and tax sale, all sorts of things. They have estate planning clinics, so they do a lot of work inside the city. And
I have a question for you, especially when it comes to seniors. I find that, a lot of seniors, I think about my grandmother, and I think about her not knowing that there's these resources that might be available. Do you go into the community, or do you just advertise for folks to come in and see you? How do you let people know that you're around?
So we do try and do a lot of outreach. We have someone who's an outreach coordinator for us, and their whole job is to try and go out into the community and talk to people. One of the really big projects that we've started recently is an advanced planning project. And the coordinator for that project goes out into the community with faith communities, healthcare, hospitals and clinics, workforce development sites to do presentations, like Know Your Rights presentations, and also talk to the people that work for those organizations, and so that they know the resources. So even if we do a presentation and someone's not there, they can still pass on the information.
And do you work within the neighborhoods of where your office is, or do you somehow look across statistics and figure out where you should be outreaching?
That's exactly what we do. Excellent. So we, especially with the advanced planning project, our goal with that project is to first kind of break down the myth that unless you have a lot of money, you don't need to do estate planning. That's just not true. Everyone needs to do it. Especially, if someone owns their home, it's really important that they do that kind of planning to pass on that wealth and that asset to the future generations.
So can you give us a scenario just to make it real for the listeners? If let's say someone has worked, 30 years, they have a house, they have several kids who are adults, they have grandchildren, they don't have much else. They don't have thousands of dollars in the bank, they don't have vacation homes, they don't have real estate property or investment property, they just have that house. Does that person need to worry about estate planning?
Yes.
So why?
Because, and the reason that this became a real focus for us is because especially in the foreclosure context, so I see this all the time, where a client comes to us and they're in foreclosure, and when we look into it, that person who's living in the home is not on the deed. And it's because, it's their parent or their grandparent who is on the deed, and so it's been generations of family living in the home, but it never went through the official process, the probate or estate administration process, to pass title to the person who's living. And that can create a lot of problems because you have to, if it's in mortgage foreclosure, trying to qualify for a modification without being on the deed is much harder. If you have trouble paying the property taxes, you can't get the homeowner's tax credit or the homestead tax credit. You don't qualify for those because you're not the record owner of the property. So it's really, and doing the estate planning doesn't, just by itself, doesn't exactly solve the problem, because once the person passes away, you still have to go through the official process. But if you've taken the time to sit down and do that planning, it's much more likely, and your family knows that, they're going to know that there is a plan and there's a map for them to figure out what to do and what you wanted them to do.
And it sounds like it puts you in a better position to be able to advocate for your rights.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because if you pass away without a will, there's a default statute in Maryland. So there's a default law that will determine how your property is passed on. So if you want to decide for yourself, you got to have a will.
You know, you are saying some things. I even wrote down who is on my grandmother's deed. I'm going to definitely ask that. But it made me think when I did my will and all of the questions that you do answer, and how I was like, wow, I've never thought about that. Do I want to be on life support? Don't I? Who can say this for me? What's important? And just going through that, and imagine not even having that written down. So I'm glad you said that today about the estate planning and knowing these type of things is so important.
Yeah. Those things are really, really important. I participate in the Pro Bono Center's estate clinic, and they do wills, health directives, where you would make those kinds of decisions, and also power of attorney. But I also wanted to emphasize that Ellyn needs more volunteers.
Yes.
I volunteer for them regularly. And let me say that the plus in volunteering for these pro bono organizations is that you get another skill. I'm an attorney coming basically from a real estate background. We did condemnations and we handled acquisitions of properties. I had no sense of anything to do with consumer protection. So you're learning a whole new skill. So I would also admonish those retired attorneys out there who want to create new brain synapses to actually come into Maryland Volunteer Lawyers, the Pro Bono Center, Legal Services for Seniors, any of those pro bono organizations, so you can help in terms of transitioning. You don't want to just sit home. You want to come in and help people.
And are lawyers, so practicing lawyers as well, practicing lawyers, can they just volunteer their time once a week?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. So we actually have a lot of different ways that you can volunteer.
Let's let them have it.
So a little background on MVLS. So we're founded in 1981, and so we're the oldest and largest pro bono provider in the state, and we are statewide. So we are statewide, with the exception of a few counties that have a county-specific pro bono program. But and even in those counties, we still accept some cases from them. But the main part of what we do is it's our core pro bono program. So that's where we refer our clients to our volunteer attorneys. So that it's all private attorneys who are volunteering to represent our clients at no cost. And it's a lot of different areas. It's 6 kind of groups that I usually put it all into. The biggest one is family law. That's where we have the majority of our cases. Our clients are mostly family law cases, I would say at least 40%. And that's divorce, custody, adoption, guardianship, name changes, stuff like that. The next biggest one is consumer, and that's about, I would say, I think this past year is about 22% of our caseload. And that's everything from bankruptcy to debt collection and landlord-tenant. And then housing is next. So landlord-tenant issues, rent escrow, foreclosure, tax sale, deed changes. We also help with ground rent. If you have some wacky real estate issue, you can call us and we'll see, We do come across some pretty interesting issues every once in a while. And then the last 3 are a little bit smaller, but they're really important, and they're kind of special focuses that we have. So one is expungements, so expungement of criminal records. Because that can be, I think you talked about this a little bit last week, it's a huge barrier to find jobs and housing. So we help with expunging criminal records. We also help with estates and estate planning, with wills, financial power of attorneys, medical directives, the whole deal. And the last thing is tax controversy. So IRS and state tax issues. There's a myth out there that low-income households or low-income taxpayers either don't pay taxes or they don't have to worry about that kind of stuff, and that's just not true. Low-income taxpayers are actually more likely to be audited by the IRS because of things like the Earned Income Tax Credit. So we help them with that. And so we have a specific clinic that's actually funded in part by the IRS Taxpayer Advocate. So they help, and it's programs across the country that help low-income taxpayers to deal with those issues.
And again, for the volunteers, they provide training. And I think that's very important because a new attorney who has had no experience in these areas is able to get training and a new exposure and go another way.
Absolutely. Well, when we're back, I think what will be awesome is if I have a question for you just based on some of the things you said, and then introduce the Baltimore Legal Museum.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we're having so much fun.
I know, it's so good.
Yeah, because I think these programs are so important.
They are. I've written down so much. I have to go back and ask questions about. Good.
Great.
No, thank you. So when we're back, we have more questions, and if you have anything that you want to ask about the pro bono services, please write here on Facebook. We're live. Send us a question, text us, let us know, and we'll try to get it answered. All right, when we're back, now we're talking with Mervin and Lolita.
Join the Just a Bit Outside crew every Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. on BeExposedRadio.com.
You want to start off?
I think I'll get it out of the way on a who's not.
Okay, do it.
The Orioles.
Right.
They got swept by the Royals. They lost 4 in a row, and the last 5 games have all been decided by 1 run. The game before, or the last game that they lost before the Royals was the Nationals, and it was Weeders, of course, one with a home run.
Hit the home run.
Right. They were going into that National series. It seemed like they were doing so well, and they just crapped out. They got that game postponed, so who knows when they're going to replay that or play that game. That's my first not for the night.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and weigh in on my who's not, and I'm going to talk about the San Diego Padres.
The Padres. That's okay. You just took my answer.
They're in last place in the NL West. They've lost 8 of their last 10. Their run differential is a negative 65, which is just horrible. So when you have, well, let me just talk about run differential a little bit. It's kind of like the
how much you're winning or losing your games by, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. It's like the margin of victory, kind of.
Right.
So when you're in a negative number, that means that you're.
Then your average game you're losing
by a whole lot.
Right.
I mean, a number like negative 65, this early in the season is pretty rough.
That's horrible.
Then the pitching numbers pretty much support this stat right here. I mean, the team ERA is 4.70, which is 26th in the league. They have 126 walks allowed. They acquired Jared Weaver in the offseason, and he really has not panned out. He's off to one of the worst starts in any of the pitchers in 2017. He's 0-4 with a 6.05 ERA. In May alone, he already has 12 earned runs. 12 earned runs in May. And, another one of their pitchers, Clayton Richard, he's 2-4 with a 4.34 ERA. And, in May, he has 6 earned runs and 12 innings pitched. So they're not pitching well. And on top of that, they are also not batting well.
Right. But it kind of sucks because Manuel Margot is doing pretty good. His the past few at bats, his last. Join the Just a Bit Outside crew every Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. on BeExposedRadio.com.
This is a Poverty ENT exclusive. Next stop, Texaco, strapped up, you already know. Fuck niggas hate.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back to Now We're Talking with Mervin A. Bourne Jr. and Lolita E. Walker.
Hi, this is so exciting. I'm finding out so much information, and I hope that you guys are learning so much now as well, and you're going to be asking questions about estate planning, getting on top of it. There's so many services that's in and around your neighborhood, so you got to look into it. I'm so excited. So we have Ellyn. I'm just going to say Ellyn so I don't mess up anything at your last name. Yes, and your husband will be like, can she get it together? And we have Ms. Tillman, which is here as well. And we've been talking about the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service, pro bono services. We put the plea out for lawyers. We definitely need your help to do some pro bono work. And guess what? You get trained on all of this other law that you might not be familiar with. And we are about to get into the Baltimore Legal Museum.
But before we do that, I wanted to say also you get mentors, because when I first started with Maryland Volunteer Lawyers, there were some wonderful, wonderful mentors who helped me with domestic cases, because I had no sense of domestic cases at all. And then, of course, if you come to the clinic, Ellyn and her staff will help you with the consumer protection. And you don't have to do this on your own. They are very supportive. They give you training, they mentor you, it's just a wide variety of things. But moving into the Baltimore Legal Museum, I'm very excited about promoting that also. And I wanted to just give you and Mervin this little booklet about the Clarence Mitchell Courthouse. If you haven't been to the Clarence Mitchell Courthouse as a defendant, a plaintiff, or just going, you need to come, because it's a beautiful, beautiful building. That building was actually built in 1900. And so it's well over 100 years old. It has work in it that you will not see anywhere else. We have artisans coming from Europe to actually study the murals and the detail in that.
It looks beautiful. Yes. Just the artwork itself and the structure.
It's just fabulous. Wow. What I just gave you is the walking tour. So you can actually walk around the whole courthouse and see what the courthouse looks like. But I wanted to just focus for a second on the Baltimore Legal Museum. It's a wonderful, wonderful room. The museum actually was developed or founded in October of 1984. And then at that time, it was actually a courtroom that had been used for the administration of decedent's estate. We've been talking about estates at this point in time. At one point in time, the second floor courtroom, room 243, in the Mitchell Courthouse was used for Orphans Court. If you've been to Orphans Court recently, you know that it is now on the third floor in what we call Courthouse East, which is right across the street from the Mitchell Courthouse. The Mitchell Courthouse, of course, was built as the Baltimore City Courthouse. And the Courthouse East, which is on the other side of the street, and it's actually had been the old federal courthouse and also post office. Now, the post office moved down to Fayette Street, and the federal courthouse actually moved up to Lombard Street. And that building was given to the city, and so the city expanded its, its operations into that courthouse. Our museum actually houses a wide variety of things. We have, I think, just the most beautiful, beautiful mural as a backdrop, which was actually or depicts the surrender at Yorktown, which I think, if you remember your American history, which was the actually turning point for the Revolutionary War. Some things that might interest you are the unanimous opinion of the Supreme Bench of Baltimore City, dated March 1885, that admitted the first African-American attorneys to the practice of law. We are very proud to say also that we have the robe that was worn by the Honorable Robert M. Bell, who was the first African-American to head the highest court in Maryland, which is the Court of Appeals.
That is excellent. So many gems. And it's so close to the time where we have to take yet another break. It's always when we're getting started and we're getting juicy.
Well, we have more.
Yes, there's so much more. But no, please tell us, just before, because I don't want us to get on a topic and then we get all in this like commercial break. But just this architecture and you telling us about the robe, what other artifacts do you have there?
We have a wide variety of artifacts. We have a copper drum that was used actually up until the 1960s to do jury selection. Of course, you know that jury selection is done by computer now. But before the computers came along, we had to do it in a different way, so we used the copper drum. Wow. We have a wide variety of wonderful photos and memorabilia regarding all the legal giants in the city of Baltimore, particularly the women and African Americans. What's really interesting is that women did not serve on juries until the late 40s, which was around the time that I was born. And so, you know, it's interesting to know that women did not, in fact, become a part of the jury system until then. Wow. So we do have the artifacts for that. We have a wide variety of books and, you know, just personal items from people.
Well, I can't wait to come. Yeah. I'm putting it on my to-do list. So when we come, thank you for sharing that. I'm super excited. When we come back, we'll find out about the times and all that great information, and then we'll head back over to the pro bono work.
Good. That's good. Great.
We'll be right back. Now we're talking.
Like the one thing you always gotta remember is people gonna try to project their insecurities onto you. But you can't listen to what them niggas saying. You gotta get out here and do your shit regardless. You gonna do what you love for the rest of your life anyway. So why not turn that shit into something? Be a man of everything. This shit bigger than me, man.
Business owners, need more customers? Offer fantasy sports contests and generate more sales. Restaurants, bars, hotels, auto dealerships, real estate offices. Whatever your business, fantasy sports contests can help you increase your sales and bring you more loyal customers. Visit Fanify.com or call 888-55-SPORT. Our software lets you customize contests fast and easy for your brand. That's right. Visit Fanify.com or call 888-55-SPORT. That's 888-55-SPORT or visit Fanify.com.
You are tuned in to BeExposedRadio.com.
So we were talking about critical thinking. So we definitely believe that critical thinking is one of the first things we need to start implementing. Not just simply being told things, or how about this? You know, we tend to listen to people who get assigned certain positions.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So when they have certain positions, we tend to think that it's truth attached to that because of their position, right? Right. Is that always the case, though?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
It's probably one of the biggest reasons we should be doing some critical thinking.
Yes, I agree. I definitely.
Skirt, 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 skirt. Stop. Skirt, 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 start, stop. I be up in the way. 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 Running on my face. Gucci guilty on my face. I be up in the way. 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 I be up in the way.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back to Now We're Talking with Mervin A. Bourne Jr. and Lolita E. Walker.
Hey, and Miss Tillman, Miss Elva Tillman, and we have Ellyn Riedl. Yes! There you go. Who are talking to us about all things law in Baltimore. So I have a question for you, Ellyn. Did you have any questions too?
You start and then I'll.
Okay, mine is super easy. I love the 6 arms that you talked to us about from the pro bono work. So for those of you guys who are just joining, Ellyn is a staff attorney at the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service pro bono work, and she talked about these 6 umbrellas, which is family, consumer, housing, expungements of your criminal records, which is so important, and we talked about that last week as well, estate planning, and then tax considerations. Look at that. I love it. Yes. So the question to you is, How would I qualify to get some of these services that you offer?
So we have income guidelines. So the funders that fund the work that we do have guidelines for household income. So you have to qualify under our income guidelines. And I actually handed that out to you guys. It's also published on our website. So it's basically 50% of the Maryland median income for your household size.
Okay.
So for a family of 4, that's about $55,000 a year. For a single person by themselves, it's about $29,000 a year.
Okay.
And there are our foreclosure prevention program and our low-income taxpayer clinic have different guidelines, but those are also on our website. And so if someone is interested in getting help from us, they can call our intake line. And that number is 410-547-6537, and it's open Monday through Thursday, 9 to noon. If you call that number, you'll talk to one of our paralegals who will talk to you about the legal issue you're having and go through the asking you some questions about what's going on so we can get an idea of what kind of case it is and if it's something that we can help with.
Can you say that number one more time, please?
Sure, yeah, it's 410-547-6537. And people can also apply online. We have on our website the ability for somebody to go on and fill out an application online, and that comes directly to us. So if you aren't able to get on the phone during those intake hours, 9 to noon, Monday through Thursday, you can still go online 24 hours a day and fill out an application there. The only exception to that is for family law cases, we ask people to actually call because those tend to be pretty complicated. So we really need to talk to the person to ask the right questions to kind of figure out what's going on there.
I have a question for you around estate planning.
Yeah.
How do we change the narrative about planning for anything that has to do with people dying? Because I know that it can be very uncomfortable to raise that issue with someone, and typically there's pushback. You know, why are you asking me about what's going to happen after I die? Why are you so worried about what's going to happen when are you trying to push me to an early grave?
Because I'm still here and I have to deal with
it
all.
Here. Why are you asking me about anything that has anything to do with dying? And as a result of that mindset, a lot of us come and go never having done anything to plan for after we're gone. So if you could talk a little bit about, one, how do we change that narrative? And two, what are some of the horror stories that you've seen in your profession as a result of lack of planning?
Sure. Well, I mean, so I think changing the narrative, I think the way that we are trying to talk about it is, it's not, I mean, it is an uncomfortable thing to talk about. And I mean, one, acknowledging that and saying, you know, I know this is not a fun thing to think about. No one wants to think about their own mortality. But framing it as, you know, it really is, it is a way to pass on wealth to future generations, which is huge. And it's also a way it's a gift to your family, because you have already thought about and made the hard decisions about, you know, for instance, in the advanced medical directive, you've already made the hard decisions about what kind of treatment you want, what you don't want, who should be making decisions for you, and all those sorts of issues that are really difficult for family members to make. It's hard for them to make those choices in the moment because they're in distress, because their loved one may be sick or in trouble. And so making those decisions yourself before that happens is just, it really is a gift to your loved ones.
And also, I think presenting death as a part of life. I mean, we're all going to die. So, you know, it's part of life. And I think, just to emphasize what Ellyn said, it is a gift. If you're the kind of person who wants to be in control of things and wants to help your family ease the transition, you want to smooth the way, then you do estate planning.
From being, you know, from having people pass away in my family or friends pass away and then dealing with, you know, what comes after and everything, it is a big help. And I think then you can really explain how this is a gift, that you are relieving this stress and this burden, which could be a burden on other people, whether it's financially, emotionally. Yeah.
I think a lot of times people are in denial about how their loved ones are going to act after they pass away.
Yes.
And I know that you see what people coming to you.
Yes.
Some of the ill effects of
yes.
Lack of planning. What are some of the bad things that you've seen?
So when I worked in at the private firm before joining MVLS, I did estates and trusts work. So this was my job, doing estate administration and drafting wills and powers of attorneys for people. And one of my favorite phrases that I learned during that time was "death and money change people," and it's true. That's true. And it's not just that someone all of a sudden turns into a terrible, mean person. It's just that the death of a loved one affects people in a lot of different ways, and it can cause a lot of friction within a family. It happened in my own family. With my grandparents getting sick and passing away. It caused a lot of friction, and it was unexpected, but it happens. And I think the important thing too to realize is that just the will deals with what happens after you pass, but the other two documents that we've mentioned here tonight, the financial power of attorney and the advanced medical directive, apply actually while you're still alive. Right. So those can be really, really important in situations where perhaps you get sick or something happens and you're not able to take care of your own affairs anymore. If you don't have those documents in place, your family may have to go through guardianship proceedings, which you have to go through the court system for that. It's expensive, it's time consuming. So having these documents in place kind of cuts right through that. And planning for that it cuts through a lot of cost and time for your family, and it saves a lot of heartache.
So that's a perfect segue into my next question, which is cutting through the narrative that everything that you're talking about is for old people, and I put my air quotes up, right? So how do you, first of all, in your experience, is that true? And if it's not true, what is the truth?
It's not true, because we don't. The future is a complete unknown. I could walk out of here tonight and get injured walking home. I could get hit as a pedestrian crossing the street. I don't know. And so I think, and although that is unpleasant to think about, having something in place gives me a lot of peace of mind. Right. Knowing even though I don't expect to have to face that for a long time, you never know, and especially for parents, it's incredibly important to do this planning, because if you are a parent of minor children, when you do estate planning, you make decisions and you put in writing, what should happen to your kids, who's going to care for your kids if you're gone. And sometimes, especially if the other parent's not around, or if God forbid something happens to both of you, who is that person that you want to step in to your children's lives? So it's not just for old people, it's for everyone, and it's not just for rich people with retirement accounts. I mean, I only really have large student loans to my name, but I have a will, because that's something that's important to me, and I have some things that probably don't have much monetary value, but they're important to me. Right. And so I want to know that those things are going to go to the right people if something happens to me.
And I think you too want to appeal to the selflessness of people, for them to not be so selfish. I'm actually a single person who has no children. I don't want to die and have people just running around in a very crazy way. I want to be selfless as opposed to being selfish. Absolutely. So, I have an estate package, and I've had it for as long as I can remember, because I think it's important for you to try to be as organized as possible and to negate all of the insanity that goes along with your death. I mean, because insanity does come along with it.
It does. And actually, you mentioned if I had any horror stories. So, unfortunately, a common scenario that I ran across a few times, more so in private practice, although it happens, I'm sure, with a lot of different clients or people that go through the estate administration process. But a lot of people don't realize that if your family fights over the distribution of the estate, if an estate is opened and the family members don't agree about what should happen, or they're trying to fight what's in the will, and the personal representative of the estate, or the legal representative of the deceased person's estate, has to litigate that issue. The lawyer fees for the personal representative come out of the estate.
Right.
So fighting, if there's a lot of infighting with the family, it can actually drain the estate.
Exactly.
The more fighting there is, the less money there is left over to distribute to family members, and it's a real big problem, especially when there's not a lot of cash in the estate. For instance, if the house is the only thing in the estate, that can become a problem. So making sure that you have a plan in place and that your family knows what the plan is important. And there's also, we've talked about estate planning and planning your will and the estate administration process, but there's also ways to avoid probate altogether, so that your family doesn't even have to go through that process. And that's something that we can also talk about, and that's something that our project also works on.
So many things to do. In my head, I'm like, wow.
I've only worked in major urban cities in my legal career, in Newark, New Jersey, Washington, D.C., and we both went to undergrad in Baltimore City. So one thing I've seen in all of those cities, and I know that it's a common theme across the country in urban cities, is the number of real estate that's owned by grandparents, great-grandparents, going back generations, that is lost to the government.
Exactly.
Because when people pass, you have children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren that either intentionally or unintentionally don't pay property taxes.
Exactly.
And so you could have a home that's worth, especially talking about in Washington, D.C., you could have a home that was bought for $50,000 many years ago that's now worth over $1 million, and it's just gone like that.
That's right.
Because of poor planning.
Exactly.
And I'm sure the same thing happens in Baltimore.
It does.
It does.
Tax sale foreclosure is something that that is a real problem in Baltimore City. It is a huge problem, and it's a source of wealth loss for a lot of communities, unfortunately. And the failure to plan, or just lack of knowledge about planning to pass your property on, can be a major barrier there. So I think a little earlier I mentioned things like the homeowner's tax credit and other programs that are available to help homeowners pay their property taxes or make repairs on their homes. And none of those are available to you if you don't have your name on the deed. So it's a real big problem, especially in Baltimore City. I can talk about tax sale for hours if you let me. So.
She's having a workshop. She's having a workshop in August about that.
So we are actually, so it's part of our advanced planning project. Right. We are partnering with the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development to do it's a campaign called My Home, My Deed, My Legacy. Right. And it's all centered around doing planning for passing on your assets and to your family. And so we've been doing an awareness campaign. So we have ads on buses and all sorts of places. There's a website that you can go to. It's mydeedmyhome.org. To find out more information about how to do this type of planning. And then we're also having clinics within the city. So we've already had 2. The last one that we had was actually just this week at the Arch Social Club, and then we're doing another one on August 15th at the 29th Street Community Center. And people can register and come in, sit down with an attorney, talk about their situation and figure out what they need to do to make these plans and put them in place for their family.
When we come back, I'd love for people to get your calendars while we're on break, and we're going to give you some dates and some workshops. When we're back, now we're talking with Mervin and Lolita.
We're rewarding you for something you already do, listening to us. It's Radio Loyalty, and it's an easy way for you to get free stuff. All you do is sign up. Go ahead and click the banner now. You'll earn points as you listen. Points you can trade in for great products and services in the Radio Loyalty store. You can earn even more points when you share your favorite station with friends on Facebook and Twitter. Radio Loyalty. It's free to sign up. So click the banner to join now.
Listen to this flashback of Skyline Radio Show.
So where we at? Where we talk about the effects and what's going on in these schools?
Yeah.
And what people don't understand. Just real briefly, I just want to talk a little bit about what people say bullying is or is not. So bullying comes in many forms. It's a teasing, it's the cyberbullying, it's the texting, it's the phone calls, it's the posting of pictures and people's personal information to pretty much cause them harm, to have them feel insecure. It's the sex assaults that people actually put out there. There are physical assaults, and there are mental assaults and emotional assaults. And what I like to remind individuals that any aggressive behavior towards anyone that is unwanted and unwarranted, and an individual asks you to stop. Let's stop there. Stop.
And they should be respecting that.
Respecting that and respecting yourself, because when you're able to respect another person, you're able to respect yourself. And the way that
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back to Now We're Talking with Mervin A. Bourne Jr. and Lolita E. Walker.
Hello, and we have Miss Elva and Miss Ellyn. So we are like all over it for everything you need to know in Baltimore and in Maryland. And you can also look this information up in whatever city or town that you're in as well, because I'm sure the services are...
We're statewide.
Yes.
Yep. So if you go to our website, you can see, I mean, we're statewide. There, like I think I said at the beginning, there's a few counties that have county-specific pro bono programs, but we still take, and that includes Montgomery County, Allegheny County, Prince George's, and then there's some counties on the Eastern Shore.
And again, we're talking about the Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service.
Yep.
Right?
We still accept referrals from those organizations. If they're at capacity or it's an issue they don't take. And we also still help with things like tax controversies, school suspensions, and some foreclosure issues in those counties.
Okay, that's awesome. And for the folks that are not in Maryland and are joining us from all over the world, thank you for joining us. But I'm sure that there is some pro bono opportunities within your local environment as well. So make sure you look that up. So we ask folks to get their calendars ready because we have free workshops that are happening. Can you tell us all about them?
We do, yeah. So the first one that I wanted to mention, it's an expungement clinic. So you can come and get your criminal record expunged. It's going to be at Bon Secours Community Works, which is at the corner of North Fulton and West Fayette Street on June 26th from 5 to 8 p.m. So, and we are asking people to pre-register for this. We've been doing expungement clinics at Bon Secours for a long time, and we get an overwhelming response every time. So there have been sometimes some clinics where we ended up staying until 10 or 11 at night because so many people came out. So we are asking people to RSVP for this clinic. So if you want to RSVP, you can call 443-827-3313, and that's you'll get in contact with Misha Newton at Bon Secours to register. And like I said, you'll be able to come in, you'll be able to sit down with a volunteer attorney, look through your criminal record. They can help you figure out what's expungible, and they'll help you fill out the expungement petitions right there on the spot. The second one I want to mention is I mentioned, I think the last segment that we have this My Home, My Deed, My Legacy initiative, and we're doing a clinic on August 15th at the 29th Street Community Center. And people can come. That's also something where we encourage people to pre-register, but it's not required. We just like to have an idea of how many people are coming so we can make sure we have enough volunteer attorneys for everybody.
What's the date on that one again?
August 15th at the 29th Street Community Center, and you can come and sit down with a volunteer attorney and talk about what you need to do to make plans. We've been talking about advanced planning a lot, and so we can help you figure out what your plan needs to be. And if you're not on the deed to your home, we can talk to you about what you need to do to get your name on the deed to your home. So and then if you need more help after that, we can take your information back to our office and try and place you with a volunteer attorney through our pro bono program to get additional help after the clinic.
I think my mom's watching. If you're there, let's take a look at the deed. Make sure I'm on there. She might outlive me. I'm glad she might be like, where's my name?
Yeah. And it's actually not just that. We also talk about avoiding probate. I think I mentioned that, but we haven't really gotten a chance to talk too much about that. But there are ways that you can plan to avoid probate so your family actually doesn't have to open an estate to pass your property to your family members after you pass. So there's a couple of ways that you can do that.
So you can share them now.
Yeah,
if you want. Yep.
Sure, yeah. So avoiding probate, there's a couple of things that we usually recommend people do. There are with financial accounts, or if you do have a retirement account or something like that, or just a checking account, you can go to the bank and you can fill out a payable on death beneficiary. So what we don't recommend people do generally is just add a loved one as a joint user on their bank account. The reason is because then that person has full access to your bank account right then and there. Right. And that can be a real problem. Especially if, let's say, for instance, that person may not be as trustworthy as you think they are. They have full access to your account. Or, if that person falls on hard times and they suddenly have creditors trying to collect from them, they can potentially touch that bank account. It's the same kind of reason you don't want to just put someone on your deed with you as a joint owner. If a creditor comes after that joint owner, your home could be in danger. But there are ways to do it that don't put your assets in danger while you're still alive. So the payable on death beneficiaries on your accounts is one way you can do that.
That
you
is
can
so
actually,
awesome. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, you can do that with almost any kind of financial account.
That's great.
You can also do that with the MVA, with a car. You can go down to the MVA. I mean, I don't particularly like going down to the MVA. I don't know any person that does. But you can go down there and you can fill out a form so that when you pass away, all your loved one's going to have to do is go down to the MVA with your death certificate, and they can take care of the title at the MVA rather than having to go and file and open an estate and go through that process. It saves time and it saves money. Opening an estate can be expensive. You have to pay for a bond for the personal representative. You have to pay for notice to be published. Both of those things can run about $100 each. For our clients, there's also probate fees that you have to pay to open an estate. And for our clients, that generally runs between $300 and $500, so it can cost almost $1,000 just to open an estate. So anything that you can do to avoid that is helpful for your family, especially. Yeah, and when we do the clinics, everyone leaves with a checklist of steps that they can go through.
Right. Have to come to the class.
Yeah. So the last thing that we really kind of emphasize, especially for our clients, is a life estate deed. So it's not something that a lot of people have heard of, but what it is, it's a way to deed the home to a loved one, but still preserving your rights over your property during your lifetime. And so if you do a life estate deed, when you pass, your interest in the property and your ownership of the property automatically passes to the people that you name in that deed. But it doesn't happen until after you pass. So it's a really good way to make plans for when the time comes, without having to have your loved ones go through all the expense and the time of an estate. Even if you do those things, I would still say you should make a will just as a catch-all. But a life estate deed and the POD, payable on death beneficiaries, are really, really great ways to avoid
Those
probate.
are the best nuggets that I've taken away today. I'm so excited about these.
Yeah.
I am. And they're things I've never heard of before. Have you heard of these before?
Never.
I'm on it.
Are
you writing down?
I sure am taking
Yes.
Absolutely.
A life estate.
And you know, the handouts that I gave you guys are all on our website too. So if you go to our website, it's mvlslaw.org. There is a tab at the top that says Get Help. If you click on that, there will be you can click on Get Legal Information, and we have these fact sheets that talk about these issues. We have videos on there, all sorts of resources that you can go to. And then for volunteer attorneys, we have training videos, we have webinars, we have a lot of materials. And I know Elva was talking about some of the benefits of volunteering with us. In addition to getting the training, and we do provide mentor attorneys for all the different areas, but we also cover malpractice insurance.
And that's real
for
important.
volunteer attorneys.
That is great. When we come back with Now We're Talking, we're going to continue to talk about all the things we've been talking about tonight. I have questions about consumer protection as well. What is consumer protection? Why is it necessary? How big of an issue is it? And we also have more questions about the Baltimore Legal Museum and pro bono service in general. So stick with us.
So much great
We'll be right
information.
back. Get a notepad and a pen so you can take notes. Come back with us. Now We're Talking.
That's good.
White keys only have this bitch jumping.
If I sit around, hold up. Look. If I sit around, hold up. Yeah. Rebel up. Let's do it. If I sit around, I'ma smoke some more. Wasn't even thinking about smoke before, but I'm in my head and I'm in the bed. Don't know who I am, like I'm wearing a mask. Working mode, tell them where the cash. If you wear the cash, tell them where the cash. If you playing for you, gon' run it back. Don't make promises, but I promise that. Don't promise me, cause I ain't into that. Fell in love with that and got hurt from that. That was all over and the curtains back. Can't see you not noticing that. I'm letting it go, it ain't holding me back. Yeah, I'm on dice, but ain't come for the crap. Drinking with uncle, we only do jack. How I'm alive, I thank God for that. Praying about it, things getting better. Open it up with my name on the letter. Why you crazy about it? Saying whatever, you shy to be you. You know you gotta be you. Sometimes I need privacy too. Yeah, you know I ride.
Whoa. The moment my son saw a redwood tree.
It's huge!
Is the moment I knew that for him,
You can't even see the top of that thing!
even the sky has no limit.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go. Your moment is out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
The Artist Exchange Radio Show every Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., every Saturday, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Real artist, real talk, real live on BeExposedRadio.com.
I was meeting with a friend yesterday, and I've gotten to the point where don't ask me a question because the truth is going to come out. And just don't do it.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back to Now We're Talking with Mervin and Lolita. We're having a great show today. We have two amazing guests.
The two E's.
Ellyn and Elva.
Yes, the
And we've
two
been
E's.
talking about the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service, the Baltimore Legal Museum, and just so many other issues, specifically dealing with real estate, estate planning, consumer protection, the IRS, family law, just so much in that respect. And then with the Baltimore Legal Museum, just the rich history of legal history from right here in this state, right in the city of Baltimore. And a lot of people don't even know that it's here, but
I
it's
know.
right here in the city.
It's right across the street from your station.
Well, I know you had a question for Ellyn,
Yeah,
right?
so but before we transition, I did want to talk to you a little bit, Ellyn, about consumer protection.
Yeah.
And I'd love if you could tell our listeners, what is it? Like, we hear that phrase thrown around, especially now it's, election season's gearing up and people are talking about
Exactly.
consumer protection. And what is it? How big of an issue is it? And you're practicing law in an urban city. Is it more of an issue in urban cities than perhaps elsewhere?
So consumer protection, it can mean a lot of things. For us at MBLS, it means representing people who are being sued by creditors, people in foreclosure, people in tax sale foreclosure, anyone who's being pursued by some kind of creditor for some kind of debt that's owed. Consumer protection, when you hear it kind of thrown around at the federal level, is usually talking about, so there's a set of laws at the federal level that are designed to protect people, consumers, from abusive and just really awful practices that debt collectors used to do and sometimes still do to try and collect on debts. So things like, calling you at all hours of the night. That's not, they're not allowed to do that. Generally, they can't call you, before 8 a.m. or after 8 p.m. That's kind of, those are the kind of rough guidelines. There isn't something specific in the statute, but it's supposed to prevent creditors from really harassing and using deceptive and abusive practices to try and get somebody to pay a debt. So the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act is that federal law, so it really outlines what creditors and collectors can and can't do to try and collect on a debt. And there's also Maryland Consumer Protection Act as well. The Attorney General's Office of Maryland does a lot of consumer protection work. So they do, so in the foreclosure crisis of the late 2000s, and if you remember from the news, all of these big banks were being sued, and there were all these settlements that they were going in, multi-million-dollar settlements that they were agreeing to. That was really as a result of federal and state governments enforcing and been pursuing on a large scale these banks for what they did to create the financial crisis. And the Attorney General's Office of Maryland does a lot of that here. They were a big part of those settlements. They got money for Maryland and for Maryland consumers. They go after companies like for-profit schools that take advantage of low-income communities, take advantage of service members, especially, who are, schools that go around guaranteeing or advertising, for these programs and job placements that just never come, or they close before someone finishes the school. So the Attorney General's office does that, and there are other ways to do that. So there are also private rights of action. Under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, if a creditor is violating the law in trying to collect a debt from you, for instance, if they're harassing you about a debt that's time barred, so if the debt is too old to collect on and they're still harassing you about it, that's illegal. They shouldn't be doing that. And if they do that, you have a potential claim against them. So there's actually, that's actually a window for private attorneys to get involved. So a lot of what we do is defense. So if somebody gets sued in court, we help them defend that in court. But if something like what I'm talking about happens and a creditor's harassing someone and using illegal tactics, a private attorney may want to take that case because they can sue that creditor, get relief for the consumer, and also get attorney's fees for them. So there's opportunities, there's government oversight and enforcement on large-scale issues. There's legal service organizations that are doing defense work, and then there's also private attorneys who are going after these creditors one-on-one to make things right for individual consumers.
That's amazing. work and so needed, right?
Yes.
A lot of times I know people have told me they feel so powerless when they're in these situations, and a lot of us don't know that there are organizations out there who are dedicated every single day to helping people in their specific situation.
Yeah, and it can feel like there's nothing you can do in that situation. The Consumer Protection Project clinic that Elva volunteers at with me is actually at the Baltimore City District Court on Fayette Street. They do it's called an affidavit judgment docket, and I can explain what that means, but it's essentially a debt collection docket. And there are a lot of people that whose cases get set on this docket, and they come to court not knowing what is going on, what's going to happen, or what they can do. So we try and meet with as many people as we can who are there being sued by a creditor to help them figure out, what is the court process for them, what can they do, and so we help them figure out if they have a defense to put forth, or if they want to settle a case, or they agree they owe the money to the creditor, they just don't know how to deal with it. We can help them make a settlement arrangement with the creditor. Sometimes can get the amount reduced. My one good thing from the week, we were able to do that for a client, more than one client this week.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so we're there every week, I don't know if affidavit judgments are. I had never heard of it before I started working for MVLS.
I've never heard of it until you just mentioned it.
So it is it's a process where you can file a case in district court, and essentially if no defense is raised, if the defendant is served and does not respond to the lawsuit, then the plaintiff or the person who filed the case can get a judgment without a trial. So it's a way to get default judgments really pretty easily if the defendant doesn't respond. So every single debt collection case really that goes through the District Court of Maryland, which is a lot of small claims. A lot of these are less than $5,000. But a lot of these, that's how they're filed. So if a defendant or a consumer is served with a lawsuit and they don't respond, that creditor can get a default judgment. And that can be really devastating for someone, because then once a judgment is entered, the creditor can do things like wage garnishment or bank account garnishment. They can freeze your bank account. They can put liens on your home or your vehicle. So there are a lot of things that a creditor can do to collect once they have a judgment. And there are that kind of process is fraught with a lot of issues that I could talk about take up a whole nother show to talk about. But that's kind of where we try and intercede.
That's really important though, because a lot of people may be under the misimpression that if they disregard the letters or don't show up to court, nothing can be done. Like if I'm not physically there, they can't touch me, they can't get me, they can't touch my assets, they can't make me pay, or the case cannot be resolved. But that's actually not true. The case will be resolved without your presence.
Yes.
And like you said, whatever you own, even future earnings, for instance, lottery winnings, for example, is an example of something that can be reached out, and you can reach out and touch it if you have a lien against someone.
Yeah, well, and the important thing to know too about judgments in Maryland is that a money judgment is good for 12 years, and it can be renewed indefinitely. So we've had clients who come to us. We had one somewhat recently who came to us and had a judgment that was over 20 years old, but the creditor kept renewing it. Wow. And so, at that point, and once a judgment is entered, it also starts getting interest accumulating on it. So after a couple of decades, that judgment can become very large, and it's just suddenly a huge problem. So even if somebody's not working right now, they're trying to find a job, but they're not working, so they think, hey, you know what, I'm not going to worry about it, they can't take anything from me right now. That judgment can sit there for a very long time and kind of lay dormant until maybe they do find a job, and that creditor can kind of swoop in and start garnishing you right there.
So for those people that are just joining us, wow, we have had such a session tonight with so much information. We have Ellyn, who was just speaking, who's from the Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service, and she's just been giving us so many nuggets that we've written down. Where they are, they have 6 arms, I'm going to call them, what are they called?
Sure.
Pillars,
Yeah.
arms, 6 areas that they can work with some pro bono work. So family, consumer, housing, which is where your expertise is right now. Expungements for criminal records. There is a workshop that's coming up. What did you call it? A clinic that's coming up. Estate planning and estates, and then tax controversies. So there's so much. It's just so much. And I think one of the things that I walked away with is just this payable on death beneficiary, making sure that we get that. So with all of those nuggets, maybe we can move over to the legal museum. It's just so much. I'm so excited. I have so many little things written down that I have to do after this.
I think it is exciting, and I just want to put in a word also for Ellyn to get additional volunteers. I volunteer at the clinics, and I've volunteered for Maryland Volunteer Lawyers for a long time. I think it is not only a way to enhance yourself as an attorney, but also you get such satisfaction from helping people. And the people who are involved in the clinics are across a wide, broad spectrum. You have young people and old people. They're really just so satisfying to help these people when they come in. You just don't know the elation you will feel.
And you know, I will say this. So you have to have a license to practice law, right?
Exactly.
You have to go to school, and you have to take the bar exam. So we're really, as lawyers, we're the only ones who can do this work. You know, and so it's just that much more important when you're in a profession that is licensed and it is kind of narrow. I mean, there's a lot of lawyers out there, but we're the only ones that can do this work. You know, a lot of people can go out and volunteer for it to, you know, build a home or, you know, tutor kids to read and that sort. Not saying that those things are important; they're incredibly important. But the volunteer pool for things like that, it's a lot bigger than the volunteer pool that we can draw from, because you have to be a lawyer. So it's something that's unique that lawyers can do, and it can make a huge impact, even if it's just you know, a couple hours at an expungement clinic like the one that's coming up next week. You know, sitting for a few hours with people to help them fill out petitions to expunge their criminal records. You have no idea how many doors you're opening up for that person. You know, people get denied housing, they get denied jobs, left and right, and all sorts of other things happen to people for a criminal record where they may not have ever actually been convicted of anything.
And also educational programs and entitlement programs. You can't get Section 8 or you can't become enrolled in certain educational programs if you have a criminal record. So those things are really important.
Yeah, so you know, expunging your criminal record can have, it's a few hours for an attorney, but it can change somebody, it really can change somebody's life.
It does change people's lives every day, right? So if you're watching and you know a lawyer, make sure that they know that they can do some volunteer hours and really help shift someone's life in a matter of minutes. So.
And in regard to the legal museum, I wanted to make certain that people get the phone number and also the email address. The phone number for the legal museum is 410-962-3252. That number again is 410-962-3252. And you can contact us at Baltimore Legal History. That's BaltimoreLegalHistory@gmail.com. And we are actually on Facebook. I am not a Facebook person, so I certainly don't monitor it, but we do have other people who monitor it. We would be delighted to have you come to the Legal Museum. It is open from 12:30 to 1:30 each day that we have volunteers. And we are very happy to accommodate you by special appointment. If you'd like to bring a class, if you'd like to bring a group, we can set up special activities for you. The museum is undergoing some renovations at this point in time. We've raised $60,000 to help us to make certain that we can accommodate people with physical disabilities also. So we appreciate this opportunity to expose people to the Legal Museum and to focus on, I think, the very important work that Ellyn is doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And while we have just a little bit of time before we go to break, I just want to tell you guys about this payable on death beneficiary. Listen, you can do it at the MVA. Who knew? MVA for your house, your bank accounts. I love it. And then what is a life estate? Make plans. So we're always going to leave you with our acronym, which we're going to do when we come back for the next segment. But I think that was my biggest aha. What was your biggest aha today? I'm so excited.
The payable, the POD, as well as the life estate deed.
Oh, the same as mine. See, we both didn't know. Yes, this is great. And calling all lawyers. So I'm actually going to touch base with some lawyers I know too to get some volunteering in. Now, I'm going to suggest this to them, and I'm going to hope that they get on board. But this is so important.
Exactly.
No, thank you for doing this.
No, thank you for having us.
Glad we could be here. Yeah. Yes, this is so great. So we do still have another segment. I think we're about to go to break.
In a minute.
Right, in a minute. But is there a nugget that you want to leave people with? If you just had one thing that you want to pop into everybody's brain tonight.
Oh man, there's so much. Well, one thing that I didn't mention about consumer protection, I mentioned that the Attorney General's office does a lot of large-scale enforcement of the laws that do exist. And if somebody's having an issue with a creditor, like a creditor harassing them or calling them all hours of the night or a bunch of times a day, or calling like family members to, now creditors can call family members or a friend to find out, to get in touch with you, but they're not supposed to call multiple times, and they're not supposed to actually give that person or talk to that person about your debt. So and if someone's not sure if what a creditor is doing is illegal, in any of those situations, you can file a complaint with the Attorney General's office, and they have mediators that can try and mediate the situation. It has to be voluntary on both sides. But even if that doesn't happen, you can file a complaint with the Attorney General's office. That's how they find out about these bad actors that are harassing people, taking advantage of people, and that can lead to those large-scale enforcement actions. So if people are having issues with creditors, they can file a complaint, and that can help the Attorney General figure out who these companies are and go after them. So even if they can't, do something on the individual level, it's still really important to let them know so that they can do those large-scale actions. And there is, they can also file a complaint for certain things like mortgages, or there's home improvement scams that happen. Contractors go around who are unlicensed and maybe don't do the work they're supposed to do or do it very badly. Things like that. Anybody who's licensed in the state of Maryland, you can file a complaint with the Department of Labor Licensing and Regulation, and they do individual investigation actions. So you can file complaints with both. You can file them with one. I usually tell people to file with both because it's always better to get more information out there. So that's something that I think not a lot of people know about. That's really important for everyone, not just the individual.
Awesome. Well, when we come back, we'll be wrapping up the show, but stick with us. Now we're talking with Mervin and Lolita. We'll be right back.
This unknown to find who we really are. Crash into something new and take a break from our broken heart. Talk with the hip, tell me you like. I think we should go for another round. Baby, try not to say too much. Let your love come down. If you wanna rule, it's some rules you gotta live by. Live by. Stay true to your cool, make a move. Don't wait on nobody else. And if it feels like a melody, sing a song, be my radio. And if you follow me there,
I'm LeVar Burton, and I'm proud to be a book person. How do I choose a book? Sometimes it's the cover, sometimes it's the title. I guess I'm pretty visual. If a book's really impressing me and the writing is really good, I will peek and see what the last paragraph is, because the endings of books should rock you. I am a book person, and if you're a book person too, read to a child and spark a lifetime of ambition. Join me at bookpeopleunite.org, because reading is fundamental.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back to Now We're Talking with Mervin and Lolita. We've had an amazing show tonight.
We have. It's been really good.
Yes, we've had two really, really special guests who've just given us so much information. I don't even know where to start. I mean, we learned a lot about the Baltimore Legal Museum. We learned so much about the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service and everything they do related to consumer protection, family law, real estate law, expungements, estate planning, and also just these so many opportunities for attorneys in general to do some giving back through volunteering, through changing people's lives by helping with the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service, and maybe practicing law in a way that you don't get to practice law in your everyday workspace, depending on what you do and what type of law you practice. So it's been a really great show, and we're really, really thankful to our guests. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are. And as usual, we leave you with an acronym. So we're going to do a piggyback. We're going to do a joint tag team here. So it's LAPSE, LAPSE. We don't want your documents to lapse. We want you to always be informed and stay on top of everything. So L is that low-income persons are high risk for IRS audits.
This is true.
Yes.
It is true. They are low-income taxpayers are audited at a higher rate than your average taxpayer, and that's because they're eligible for things like the Earned Income Tax Credit, which can be a lifesaver for someone who is a low-wage worker, minimum wage worker, who has a family. But that really puts them at potential risk for being audited, and we help with that.
I love it. The next is allow wealth to be built for future generations by planning now.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Incredibly important, not just for rich people.
Yes.
It's for everyone.
Demystifying
it is for everyone.
It's for everyone. Proper planning is important. So you talked about the health care directive, the health directive, power of attorney. My new favorite, payable on death beneficiary. Yes, those are important, so planning now. Then the S is about shaking the myth that planning is just for old people or rich people, right?
Especially parents, parents who have young children. Very important. I mean, I don't have any kids, and I'm fairly young, but I still did it because I have things that are important to me. Right. If you have something that's important to you and you want to make sure that it gets to someone special, you got to plan for it.
Yes, and then experience the gems that are in your local area, like the Baltimore Legal Museum.
Yes, please come to see us. We are delighted to have you. We are located at the Clarence Mitchell Courthouse, which is 100 North Calvert Street, room 243. And you may call us at 410-962-3252, or you may email us at baltimorelegalhistory@gmail.com. We would be delighted to accommodate you on special tours or set up times for you to come other than the times that we're normally open, which is 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. Each day that we have volunteers.
Oh, you're open for the hour at 12:30 to 1:30 each day?
And that's generally because we get jurors who come in for the Baltimore City court system, and that's when they go to lunch. So we open every day during those hours when we have volunteers through the Baltimore Bar Association.
I love it.
Yeah.
And as Mervin said, thank you guys for being here. If we just leave our guests really quickly with the way to get in touch with each of you, that'll be awesome.
Yes.
So I think I mentioned at the beginning, if you are looking for help with a legal issue that you're facing, whether it's family, consumer, housing expungements, estates, or tax controversies, or anything that kind of fits in between those, give us a call. It's 410-547-6537. Monday through Thursday, 9 to noon. And you can also go on our website. It's MVLS Law, so Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service, mvlslaw.org. And you can fill out our online application 24 hours a day. And then if you're a volunteer or you're an attorney who's interested in volunteering, you can actually sign up to be a volunteer on our website too. You just fill that out and it sends your information to us, and then we follow up with you. If you're interested in learning something new, we will hook you up with trainings and webinars and materials, and a mentor attorney, so you have someone to call and ask questions if you take a new case that you're not familiar with. And we also cover you with malpractice insurance. So even if you're at a firm, that has malpractice insurance, ours covers you first. So
that's excellent.
Yeah,
so exciting.
And so there's all sorts of resources for new volunteers or volunteers who are learning something new.
And if you're not in the state of Maryland and you're practicing law, you should look up the Volunteer Legal Service Agency in your state, because I'm sure they have volunteer and pro bono opportunities for you to take
and
advantage
also the
of.
lawyer referral offices, because each county or subdivision has a lawyer referral office.
Yeah, and if you're not in Maryland, check with the bar associations in your area. That either if there's a state bar association or a county or city bar association, they usually will have connections, or they'll have pro bono programs of their own.
And we'll put the two, to that point, we'll put the two clinics up on our Facebook page and get them out as well. There's an expungements clinic and then the deed clinic, which are so important. I mean, so important. Yeah. So tell us about how we can get in touch with the
Baltimore Legal Museum. Oh, that's okay.
Two B's.
Yeah.
I used to live in Boston.
Baltimore Legal Museum. Let me just emphasize the phone number again. It's 410-962-3252. That's 410-962-3252. We are on Facebook. So you can actually go to Facebook and actually see what the museum looks like, but there's nothing like coming into that room. It is fabulous. And our email address is Baltimore Legal, that's all lowercase letters, Baltimore Legal History @gmail.com. Again, that's Baltimore Legal History @gmail.com. We really appreciate your assistance with all of this.
Awesome.
Oh, yes, thank you so much for having us.
Sure thing. And in our last minute, we should tell them how to reach us, right?
Yeah, can you do, I lost my connection because my computer turned off.
No problem.
Okay.
I am your co-host, Mervin A. Bourne Jr. I am also the author of A Single Mother's Guide to Raising a Son, which is available on Amazon.com in both paperback and ebook. You can reach me via email at nowwe'retalkinglive@gmail.com.
Right.
If you want to reach the show, if you want to reach me personally, you can reach me at mervinbourne@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Yes, and I'm Lolita E. Walker, and I am the author of The Intersection of You and Change, where you can get, just via my website, you can go to Lolita, Lolita Walker.com/the-book. Just go on there and you'll see a link to get to the book. You can get it there from Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and all that great stuff. I also am a certified life and executive coach, as well as a retreat host. So my upcoming retreat, for all of you women out there, I'd love to host you. Intentionally small, from 8 to 12 women, so very limited seating. It's a 4-day all-inclusive retreat, September 19th through the 22nd. It's really just a place where busy women can go retreat, relax, and rejuvenate you.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, so I'm excited. And Mervin's having a men's retreat by the end of this year.
And we're excited about you coming to the Legal Museum to do a presentation on our Thursdays at the Legal Museum in October.
Yes, thank you for that invitation. I'm so excited. So we'll be talking about the intersection of you and change there too. Lots going on. And yes, you've got to come.
I will come. I will be there.
It's full of young lawyers.
I love it. Well, we're going to be talking about it, and this book is just for you. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for joining, and we'll talk to you next week, where guess what? we are talking to Miss Kalila Harris. So we'll give you more information about it and get it out to you. Bye. Now we're
Thank you,
talking.
Elva. Thank you, Ellyn.
Thank
See
you.
all next
We
time on Now We're
appreciate
Talking
it.
with
It's
Mervin and
wonderful.
Lolita. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Join the Just a Bit Outside crew every Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. on BeExposedRadio.com.
You want to start off?
I think I'll get it out of the way on a who's not.
Okay, do it.
The Orioles.
Right.